We continue to create this admin dashboard using Tailwind CSS. If you're watching this video for the first time, I would recommend you to check the description of this video, where you're going to find a link to the previous episodes that we have tackled, so that you can easily follow along. So we continue to create this dashboard here. So this is where we left. If we look at the almost finished admin template, we find that the area that we are now supposed to tackle today is this area here, which is scrollable. We also have this text area here, where you can be able to type your text, as well as we also have this remaining component here. So without so much ado, let's get started. So before we go to this part here, first of all, we are going to have this icon here. If we look at the project that we are creating here, so if you look at our work here, we want to have this very icon here that we have in this area here. So to be able to do that, we're going to launch to the Visual Studio Code, and this is where we have the name. You see we have this specific div here. So this specific div is the one that we have on top here. So on top here, in fact, we should have it in a different color. So let's just try to give it a different color. So instead of having it like that, I'll just come and say a BG white. Alright, so we are going to check that later. So that is the div that we are working on, and now we have the name John Molethi and the muted text. So it is now below the muted text that we are going to have yet another div. So I'll just come and create a div, and within this div we are now going to have the specific icon. So we're just going to pick the icon that we are using here. As I said, we're just using these as samples. You can be able to use real icons in your project. I'll be leaving a link in the description below, or you can be able to download these icons. So so I just come and paste that SVG icon there. It's just a search icon that we're just using to represent the real icon that should fit there. So now we have the icon there, and then now we want to be able to style it, because if we now refresh the page, you'll find that yes, we have the icon, but we still need to align it properly. So I'll just go to its div here, and this div, I'm going to give it a class. So I'll give it a class, and the first class will be flex. I wanted to flex in a low, so I'll say flex low, and I'll also say items center, so just to align it at the center. So just like that, and that we're just going to leave it like that. We can also try to make the icon a little bit smaller, so just change its height to 4 and also its width to 4 as well. So this is in the SVG class, so I'm just specifying its height and its width. Alright, so that should have that working. Now it's time to go to the conversation area. So this section down here, we're going to have ours as well down here. So to be able to do that, I get to the Visual Studio, and just below the icon, so we have this specific div here. So just below that, we're going to create yet another div. And so here, first, before we do anything, let's just give it a class, and I just want to have it with some color. So I'm just going to say class is equals BG blue, maybe 300. So let's refresh that. That seemed not to work. Let's see what is the problem. BG blue, at 300. Let's try to have some text inside here. Maybe we can say conversation area. Yeah, and there we have that, so it means everything is working properly. So I'll also now continue here to give it a flex auto, and also I'll give it an overflow, because as you remember, we want this part also to be scrollable like we have in this case. So for that case, we're going to come and give it a class of overflow y out. And for the background, we're going to change it to gray, and this should be gray 100. Alright, so now we have that. So we now want to go to the next thing, and what we want to do now is to have the icon. So this icon here. So we're just going to inside that have another div, so a div, and inside this div we are now going to have the icon. So we just pick the icon that we are using here or reusing here, so I'll just have it there. And so now we have the icon there, and we can change its size by changing the width to 6 and the height to 6. Alright, and now just below the icon we are just going to create another div, and this div we're just going to inside it have yet another div. So like that. So it is now within this div that we are going to have some content. So we can just come and say some text here. Yeah, some text here. Alright, so now if we refresh that, let's see what we have. Yes, so we have the text there, so everything is taking shape. Now we need to style it a little bit so that it is similar to what we have here. So we get to the Visual Studio Code, and we're going to start with the SVG, styling the SVG icon. And so we give it a class, and the first class will be as usual flex low, and we also want to have a space in the x axis of 2, and also a padding of 5. So that will be the icon. Now we move on to the text. So we move to the parent div within where we have the text. So we again give it a class. So that is a class, and the first class as usual will be flex, and this one will be a column. So that's all that we need in that div. Then for these other we also come and give it first of all a BG color of green, and that should be 200, and a padding of 2, and it should be loaded. Just that. So let's see on a browser what we have achieved. Cool, and as you can see we have that there, but looks like we need to adjust this a little bit because we should have some space at least. So let us say for the text let's try to give it 4. Okay, so that didn't quite work well. So getting back here, let's see Oh, sorry, we have a typo here. This should be space, and this one should be gray. Yes, so that's just a typo. Let's see if that typo fixes the problem. So we refresh that, and that is fine. That is working fine. At least we have that there. So the next thing that we want to do is to add the 5 hours or the time. So to be able to do that, we go to the div below. We go to the div. So to be able to do that, we go below the text, and here we create another div. So here we create another child div here. So it should be within this div here. And so here what we are going to do is to have the time. So it will be 5 hours ago. And as usual, we style it, so we give it a class, and so the class will be what? A text play 100, and text should be at least small, so text SM, and that's it. So let me just have this with 150 instead of 100. Alright, so that should have us with that text there. So if I refresh that, let's see if we have that. Yeah, cool, we have the text down there. So now we also want to have the text on the reverse. We want to have it we want to have the text on the other side. This is like the person who is like responding. So to be able to do that, what we are going to do, we're going to come and pick the whole of this div, this one, so that is having our contents. So the whole of this that is within the div that has an overflow, so we pick the whole of that. So I'm just going to copy it, and basically what I want to do, I want to paste it down here. So remember, this should be within the parent div, so this one that has an overflow, so it should be like that. In fact, I should just space it a little bit here. So within this div that has an overflow, we now have duplicated another another of its child div, so we have duplicated that. So, and now to have it on the opposite side, because now if I refresh the page, let's refresh the page and see what we have so far. So as you can see, now we have it down here, but we want it to be on this other end. So to be able to do that, we're just going to come to this div here, the parent div, just above the icon. And here we are just going to come and add reverse, row reverse. So we're just going to come and say flex hyphen low hyphen reverse. So we're just reversing that. So now if we refresh the page, as you can see, now we have it on the reverse. We have it on the reverse. So we also want now to fix this. This is too close to that component there. Alright, so that is working fine. So let's just now to duplicate this to mimic a real conversation. So I'm just going to come and duplicate those several times. So we'll just come and pick this div, so up to there, and also that other div up to that point, and I'm just going to duplicate it. So I hold Shift Alt and the arrow pointing downwards, and that should have me duplicate that several times. So if I refresh that, yeah, so we get that sort of a thing. You can see it is scrollable. Let's just try to clear it or clean it a little bit, so that it mimics a real conversation. So let me just come and do what okay. So I just want to come and pick one of the divs. So let me just come and pick this. I duplicate it a little bit, and I also come and maybe pick the reverse one. I duplicate it like that. Okay, let's see what we have now. Yes, and that's what we have achieved. So I think that is looking a bit fine. So now the other thing that we also want to do is to have this component down here. So we're just going to scroll up to the last conversation. So we move down up to the last conversation there. Yeah, and this is where we are going to have the text box. This is where we are going to have the text box. So as usual, we are going to create a div, and this div we're going to style it like this. So we'll give it a class, and so first of all, it will have a flex of none. So we don't want its size to be affected by the content, and we also want it to have a height of 40, and also the padding should be 4. So now inside this div we're going to have a text area. So a text area, and this text area is where a person can be able to type the text. So I'm just going to get rid of that, and I just style it. So I'll give it a class. So for the width it will be full. So I just come and say width full, and height should also be full, and I don't want it to have an outline, so I'll just remove the outline by saying outline none. And I also give it a hovering effect. So I'll just come and say hover, and for the hover I'm just going to have it with a border, and the border should be blue 400, and I should also have it rounded, and also with a padding of 3, and not to forget that I should also give it a shadow. Sorry, this should be shadow, and this should be a large shadow. So now that is our text area. We have styled it like that. Let's try to put some stuff inside it. So maybe I can just come and say, what is in your mind today? What is in your mind today? All right, so, and that's it. So if we refresh that, all right, so that's what we have. But if we compare it with this, we don't have the hovering effect yet. We don't have the hovering effect. Let's see. Okay, we need to have it with a border, so just add the border. I think that should fix the problem. So we refresh that, and so now when we hover over that, we have the hovering effect appearing like that, and we can be able to add some text here. yeah, we can be able to add some text inside that very component. Okay, so that is fine. That is at least working well.